Hello, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we generally answer publicly posted questions from YouTubers, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. But not today, because we have a bit of a public service announcement. You may or may not be aware, but the federal government has shut down. Yes, the federal government of the United States has shut down. Politicians have been unable to come to an agreement as to funding the government. This has happened many times over the past 20 years. I believe, and we take a strictly non-partisan, bipartisan view of this. We think both political parties are predatory and aggressive towards employees, so we take no sides. But both sides, both of whom we do not brook any business with, have been unable to come to an agreement to fund the government. Now, why do you care about this today? I don't know. There could be some government service that you really value, like maybe you were going to the national parks and that was a thing you wanted to do for your vacation, and maybe the national parks are going to be closed. That could suck. But this is really relevant to this channel because the EEOC appears to be canceling or rescheduling all of its scheduled mediations. And if you're a claimant at the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which many of you are, they're not necessarily telling you why your mediation is being canceled or rescheduled. They're just canceling or rescheduling. And they're not telling you, hey, this is because the government shut down. This is because we think the government shutdown is going to extend this long and we are going to reschedule this. You should be aware. So that's causing some claimants, generally ones who are not represented by attorneys, to not understand what's happening when their mediation gets rescheduled or canceled. And sometimes they think that their employer is refusing to mediate. That may not be the case. That is likely not the case currently. If it's October the 2nd, 2025, or within a couple of days of that, and your EEOC mediation is being rescheduled or canceled, it's probably not your employer's fault, which might matter to you because you might be getting hopping mad thinking your employer canceled a mediation after they scheduled it with you, and that might not be true at all. And that might lead you to not want to talk about settling your case anymore and to go on to federal litigation. And listen, that might be a good choice or it might not. I don't know. I don't know your case. I don't know you. I don't know your risk tolerance. But I can tell you that I don't want you making a decision because you're angry based on a misunderstanding. So I've heard this from a couple different claimants. People have called me up. Our own clients, we had about eight mediations get rescheduled because of the shutdown. And our clients they were not happy, understandably so. And it's tough to explain. Like, listen, there's people, these people are called senators and the president, and they don't care about you. Congress as a whole, and the president, all these politicians, they don't care about you as an individual at all, like even a little bit, not even like a skosh. And I get it. Maybe you're a really big fan of one or the other side. I understand. Many of you are. It doesn't matter. No matter how much of a fan you are of either side, they don't care about you. You don't exist to them. You're just a poor. I can tell you're a poor because you're watching a YouTube channel meant for people who have jobs. If you have a job, politicians don't care about you. By definition, you're already not wealthy enough to give them money for their campaign. If you don't have tens of millions to give their campaign, they don't have the time of day for you. It's that simple. Now, you can argue, the progressives are different. Maybe. You can argue, the libertarians, they have a different mindset. Maybe. I'm talking about the two big parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. They don't care. You can say what you want. It doesn't matter. They don't care. It is their fault. They have not funded the government. Not your employer's fault that this mediation is being canceled. It is not your attorney's fault. It is not the worker at the EEOC's fault. It is not your employer's fault. It is not your employer's attorney's fault. No one involved in your individual case in any meaningful way is at fault, overwhelmingly likely, for this rescheduling or cancellation of your mediation. I just want you to know that, because I've had this conversation a couple times today, and I've talked to a couple people off the ledge, and I understand why they think what they think, and I don't think they're being stupid. The assumption is easy enough to jump to. It's just not correct, right? Sometimes the simplest answer, my employer did this. My lazy attorney did this. That no good attorney on the other side did this. That lazy EEOC worker did this. Those are all simple assumptions to make. They sound credible. They sound easy to believe. They are easy to believe. They're not correct. They're simply, overwhelmingly likely to not be correct in this moment in time. Please take that into account. If you have questions about the government shutdown and how it affects the EEOC or OSHA or the National Labor Relations Board, ask them down below in the comments. We're happy to have those discussions. We have no idea how long the government shutdown will last. I do believe that the government shutdown will apparently be used to terminate large swaths of federal employees. Now, that raises questions for the federal employees. Is that legal? It doesn't seem like anybody really knows. I've been researching that, and it seems like the answer is, we didn't think a lot of things were legal, but a lot of things are happening these days that maybe weren't legal, and they get away with it because the Supreme Court is stacked. So when you ask me, is it legal that a bunch of federal employees are being laid off just because there's a government shutdown? I don't know. I don't know. If the legal scholars of the federal system don't know, I don't. It's that simple, right? I rely on legal scholars. So there's that. There's also this issue of like, how does it impact you, right? If you're waiting on loan forgiveness, you have a student loan with the Department of Ed, and everybody in the Department of Ed gets fired. And listen, we can have a conversation about the Department of Ed, right? Like, they have not done the best since the Department of Ed took over this country. Seems like we've all gotten a lot dumber. Seems like it's more of the Department of Propaganda in some ways. Maybe the education that the Department of Ed pushes is not so great. But that's neither here nor there, because you're waiting to hear about your loan forgiveness. And the Department of Ed would have an integral role to play in you receiving that student loan forgiveness. If there's no one home because they've all been fired, what happens? We're going to find out together. The scary answer, the horrifying answer is nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. They don't know. The people who fired them don't know. The people who didn't want them to be fired don't know. It appears the legal scholars don't know. It appears that the Supreme Court does not yet know. Terrifying. Horrifying. The uncertainty of it all. And yet, here we are. Here we are. So, I encourage you, let's have discussions down below. If you're worried about a particular facet of the federal government that relates to work or employment in some way, please don't hesitate. Let's have those conversations. I might have thoughts. I might at least have read something on the topic that I can share with you. If you're a federal employee and you're being terminated and you want to talk about that, please, let's. I commiserate. I hate to see mass layoffs. And listen, I have my own issues with federal employees. Many federal employees are not the sun, the moon, and stars of hard work and dedication. But that being said, I never want to see thousands, tens of thousands of people terminated from their livelihoods, especially when there's no rhyme or reason, right? If we're firing all the bad federal employees, maybe I could sign off on that. That might, listen, you didn't do your job, you just took a paycheck, you worked 2 hours a day max. Okay, we can make an argument for your termination. right? Maybe we don't feel so bad for you. Maybe you're a bad guy or a bad woman, right? But these terminations, it appears, will take place with no rhyme or reason. Just because you work for the Department of Ed doesn't mean you are a bad employee. There were good employees. Just as the EEOC has good and bad employees. Just as OSHA has good and bad employees. Just as the National Labor Relations Board has good and bad employees, right? There are people who help in those agencies. Without question. Without question, I know and am friends with many of them. There are also people who could not be bothered to pick up the phone or respond to an email or even read a charge of discrimination or sexual harassment. That's sad. That's sad that you would take all that money and you would just decline to help people all day, and you'd sit and I assume play fantasy football or read blogs about tea sets or something. I don't know, right? It's sad that you would do that, but I don't want the good getting terminated with the bad. And that sounds like what they're planning. It sounds like they're planning to terminate everybody, or as many as they can. Is that legal? We're going to find out together. Never happened before, to the best of my knowledge. So that's the thing that's happening. We're going to find out. Anyways, comment down below if this was helpful in some way. Like, subscribe, do all the things. I hope it was helpful. Take care, everybody.